go old school.
All right, let's try to do it.
We'll have that as well. Leave it on there.
I'll tell you what. Let's just I just want to see if it's even more in tune. And let's see that. I think this is the answer, brother. I think that's the answer, right? We could do that. It doesn't require things.
Perfect. It's perfect.
Let me just give it a quick.
No worries.
I think that's lovely. Here we go.
Willkommen, as you say here in Germany, and welcome to Guitar Summit in 2025. And I will be sitting on the sofa for the next 3 interviews, my first of which is with the wonderfully talented Andy Wood. Please, round of applause for Andy. Thank you.
How's everybody doing? Doing good? Yeah. All right.
And if you were here last year, you might remember I had the honor of spending half an hour with Andy as well on this very same sofa. So we're going to kind of pick up a little bit from where we left off last year. We're going to talk about some of the things that have changed with what Andy's been up to, talk about new music, talk about your tuition stuff, and hopefully we're going to talk a little bit that you guys will be interested in what's the difference between practicing and learning. So I'm guessing mindless noodling versus structured learning. But Andy, it's lovely to see you again.
That's great.
Oh, do you want to use this one?
Try that again. Yeah, it's great to be here. It's great to see everyone. And yeah, it's been a hell of a year. It's been really good.
So let's start off then with new music, new album, Charisma.
Yeah. Around this time last year, I released the album Charisma, and it was a passion project. You know, I started that record in COVID when we were all in lockdown. And I know that some of you probably are familiar with what I do and some of you probably aren't familiar with what I do. But in the States, I've spent most of my life since 2013 touring as a sideman for very famous people, right? Like I always say I'm not famous, but my bosses are. You know what I mean? So everyone from Scott Stapp, Creed, Rascal Flatts, everything in between. And then when COVID happened, we were all just locked up. I'd never been a content creator or that kind of thing. Any videos that were out online were other people's perspectives. And when COVID locked us down, at night, I would go downstairs and make maybe an Instagram or something, and I would just give myself the challenge of writing a melody or a hook and not writing something to impress other guitar players. And through the course of COVID, it was probably one of the hardest years of my life was 2023. I lost my granddad who taught me how to play music when I was a kid, and my dad within 13 months. It was just a really rough time. And I probably should have been an adult and get a therapist, but instead I just documented music and put my feelings into music. And by the time the lockdown had released its grip on the world, I had about 52 demos. And I was able to look at that and cultivate it. Now, over the course of that, we started the Woodshed Guitar Experience, which we'll talk about. And John Petrucci from Dream Theater had me as an instructor at one of his events. And when I went out there, obviously, I met a lot, didn't meet, but, got to spend time with guys like JP and, Dave LaRue or whoever. And the front of house guy on that gig was a guy named Jimmy Maslin, Jimmy T. Jimmy T engineers all the Dream Theater records, John Petrucci solo records and stuff, and we hit it off. And he was interested in the demos and the album, and so he said, "I'd love to mix this record." And I said, "Well, I can't afford you." but it became a passion project that he became vested in. And then when John heard the demos, he said, "Hey, let's aim this." Wow. You know, so having your heroes become mentors to become, you know, it helped the record get to places that typically can't be gotten to when you're just putting out instrumental music by yourself, quote unquote. You know, this was record number 4 or 5. It was fourth studio record, fifth record. I had a live record. And my childhood hero was a guy named Brent Mason, a Telecaster chicken picking guy. And he had become another mentor and friend. And I've been very blessed to have some of these heroes become friends. And he did a guest solo on the record. And there's this new guy, this really upstart blues guy named Joe Bonamassa. I think he's going to make it. He might have a good career at some point. He was so kind as to offer a guest solo to the record as well. And the same kind of thing. I was like, man, you know, how much do I owe you? I can't pay you what you're worth. He goes, man, give me a Diet Coke and we'll call it easy. I'm just glad you called to have me play on it. And it was really cool. And the record, one of the mission statements with the record was not to use any plugins or any modeling or even software. And you guys know you can get software strings and horns and all this stuff. I wanted to do it the hard way because the record was dedicated to my dad and granddad. And I wanted the experience of doing it the hard way. You know, it wasn't out to prove that technology is bad or anything so ego-driven. It was more just to really appreciate the process of tracking songs. And the centerpiece to the album, at least in my opinion, is a ballad that I wrote for them. And it has 102 stems. 102 tracks. It's all violins, violas, cellos, and everything. My good friend Eli Bishop did the strings for that song, and he does string arrangements for video game music like Destiny and Apex Legends and these big video games. And he also is a string arranger for Nick Johnston. He's done some stuff with Nick. Actually, I introduced him to Nick, so it's like funny how that serendipitous thing happens. But the approach to the record was to use all amps and record drums in a room and to do it the hard way, and it was really therapeutic.
How do you take 52 demos and choose the 10 songs that you're going to put on an album?
And distill it down. Yes, it's an interesting question because the one thing that when I was making the demos, I wouldn't let myself write the shreddy, impressive sections. I'm kind of known throughout the guitar industry as a guy that plays probably way too many notes and, you know, too much technique and all this kind of stuff. And the comment section on YouTube lets me know how I don't play with feeling and stuff. I'm just kidding. But this guy's laughing. He's read those comments. So, you know, the way that I chose it was I would just listen to the demos, and then later that afternoon, if I was doing any chores around the house, the melodies that were still there, I was like, well, that's clearly the answer because it's stuck. And it was a very selfish process because, you know, some of the songs that were really more technical or whatever, they didn't make the cut. But some songs did, right? There's a tune called Free Range Chicken. If you guys saw the Rick Beato interview, that's the tune I played on that. And that's a bit of a trade show song. You know, it's got all the tricks and taps and picks in it. But then, you know, there's the tunes. Like I think the most interesting song on the album was laying out the songs in order. And the first song on the record is a song we're going to play tonight, actually called Shoot the Sundown. And I wanted the listener to hear not guitar out of the gate. So the first thing the listener hears is a snare drum. It comes in with goom, goom, right? And then the next thing the listener hears is just rhythm chugs. If you'll hold the microphone, that starts with, you know. And so when that happens, there's no, the listener still has yet to hear an impressive chord. There's no impressive harmony yet. There's no impressive polyrhythms or anything. It's still, we're just laying a foundation. So finally, when the main melody starts, I introduce it with the first curveball that the listener hears. And it takes 30 seconds to get there, you know, and that was kind of by design. And so it goes like this. So we're coming from... So you end up with... is the first thing the listener hears from a guitar perspective. And I think it was just my way of saying we can get through an album like we used to. This isn't a 30-second Instagram post. Don't swipe away. It might be cool and we might get through it together, but it's going to take a minute. And by the end of the song, there's octafuzz and everything's huge and it's going, bombastic or whatever. I just felt like everything in today's guitar community, not everything, because that's a bit of a lame way to say it. I feel like a lot of things and a lot of negative things in today's guitar community are built upon instant gratification. Hey, look at me. Look how fast I can play. Look how good I am right now in this moment. And please, for the love of God, don't swipe away. I need the clicks. Kardashianification, right? That's what I call it. It's like, man, we're kind of losing the plot a little bit on making a good song and making an album of good songs. And I don't know about you guys, but the albums that got me into guitar, that make me want to play guitar, albums like Avia Musicom or High Tension Wires or Blow by Blow, and these are albums full of songs that I can remember the melody. Like if I were just to play... that's a great song. That's the guy that gave us the amazing intro on Cliffs of Dover with all the notes, but he gave us an album of great songs. And you look at High Tension Wires, it's like, man, Highland Weddings on that record. And, it's just really important to me from a guitar record standpoint to attempt to do something bigger than surface level of like impress the listener because they're flipping through social media. And maybe that is... I don't know, too egocentric or too prideful of an approach, but maybe not. But in the process of all of the groundwork and the reasoning that I made the record, that's why I did it that way. I just think with my granddad and my dad and COVID and all of the stuff that was going on globally, I just thought it was a bit of a disservice to put out a record full of fast licks. I feel like we've done that.
Where do you think How do you think that has shaped now your perspective on what you might write in the future? It feels to me artists go, particularly perhaps younger artists, they have to get all the flash stuff out of their system first before they begin to realize that actually songs that have real longevity and that people remember and enjoy listening to are all about melody and hooks.
I think that's multi-layered, because we as musicians, I know, like we're buddies, we talk about this stuff, it's like we're fragile creatures and our egos mean everything to us, you know what I mean? And so the reason younger players go from caterpillar to butterfly, so to speak, is because they got it out of the system it's almost proven to their self that they could do it. Mm-hmm. As much as it's about proving to the world, it's like, no, look, I did all this stuff. I think one of my biggest hurdles in my first two records was separating the bluegrass country stuff and the shred, muso, fusiony stuff. Like on my first record, there were tunes like Shred Neck, which is clearly a Telly Albert Lee thing. And then there was tunes like Chelmsford, which was dedicated to Guthrie and more of the muso, fuso kind of thing with odd stuff in it. And I really found my voice on the Junktown record when I stopped trying to do this song is this one, and this song is this one, and this song is this one. Junktown was more like all of that stuff is in one song. It's like the Southern thing. That's where like it really started honing in. And then Charisma just had all of that emotion behind it and storytelling that I think came from being forced not to entertain. I wasn't working on the road every night. It was just like being forced to sit there and be like, all right, hotshot, what are you going to say? If you can say anything, what are you going to say? And dealing with the mortality of my family, it really became an introspective because I was like, well, what am I going to leave behind? Is it just going to be a bunch of fast shit that I've put on Instagram or YouTube? And that seems not great. It's not that that's not impressive or whatever, or it's been really good to me. It's got me into the guitar community. But I think the thing that matters is like, well, what am I going to say?
I think I'm just in the interest of sort of moving on. Let's start talking about Woodshed and the point at which you realized that you felt you had something that you could say that would help other guitar players improve how they want to play. And Woodshed has been, I imagine, popular beyond your wildest dreams, right? Because it's a hugely successful tuition program. But I think it needs a special person to, there's a big difference between a great guitar player and a great teacher. They're two different skill sets, and you've obviously managed to embrace or find a way of embracing both.
I don't think I'm really either, but I'll take whatever compliment you give.
So what do you think it is about Woodshed that has resonated with guitar players?
Yeah, so for those that don't know, Woodshed is our annual guitar event that we host. It's like a getaway retreat, VIP retreat, where we bring in 6 of the best guitar players in the world, and you spend 4 days learning from them, and it's limited to 100 people. And we host it in Tennessee, and our guys that we've had over the years, we've had Eric Johnson, Steve Morse, Brent Mason, Dan Huff, Joe Bonamassa, Robin Ford. It's been really amazing, and with it being so small, it's like, imagine this room right here, and you're sitting with Robin Ford, and he's letting you play his Dumble. It's like, that can only happen when it's a small community thing. And I think the things that you were asking about, how do you, be performer, teacher, that was all just more what I feel like I'm good at is being a conduit within the guitar community to connect people. That's what my Patreon and my online community is all about. I live stream more than I actually make actual videos because I like the interaction and I like connecting folks, and that all kind of tied to COVID. I didn't do any of this stuff before COVID. Like, COVID was this eye-opener of like, man, this is what happens when you take away the interaction of music. It gets real lame. Remember that, like, think about how we're sitting in this room right now. We've all got these headphones on, and we're it's like you're seeing and experiencing music through a filter, through a lens, like even just us talking to each other. But, like, imagine that, go back in time, and we're seeing these jams with these windows of people. It's like, boy, when we play music tonight in that 2,000-person room, and we've got jams happening with Andy Timmons and Billy Sheehan and all these great players tonight, that's what it's about, audience. And it made me value that, and I wanted to just do what I could to keep that thing rolling, whatever that is, and appreciate it.
Are you able to look at another player's technique and find something that you can sort of constructively tailor to the person that you're trying to teach?
Sure.
What kind of things are you as opposed to just, everybody gets the same lesson?
I think that doesn't work worth a shit, truthfully. I really don't think what works for you is not going to work for you. It's not going to work for you. And I think the way that I like to teach, if you want to call it that, so many instructors, they make curriculum. And I'm not picking on these guys. I'm just saying this is something that I see. Again, I'm touring session guy first. I'm all of these things second. So I see a curriculum that's being built. Hey, if you want to improve your alternate picking, learn this lick and work on it all week, and I'll see you next week. Well, that's not as valuable because that can be forgotten. Right? That lick can be forgotten. But if I help to teach you how to learn for yourself, and I teach you, the adage of give a man fish versus teaching a man how to fish, I think that's the thing that's the most valuable in our Patreon. I've watched guys who had never heard a Tony Rice bluegrass record, Brian Sutton record. Now they're ripping bluegrass. And I've taken the other guys that grew up, maybe some older cats that grew up listening to, Cream or whatever, and now they're playing things that they didn't think they could play. And it's really breaking down simple human barriers like fear. Anybody in the room ever feel like you haven't practiced enough to attempt to learn Donna Lee or whatever? It's like you don't feel like you're good enough to go learn the thing. I think that's complete garbage. I think you can go learn what you want to learn. You may not be able to get the whole thing in one sitting, but this is tied to a more of a human mindset thing that I've been fascinated with, that I think makes young kids excel. They don't have the idea of fear. So when they hit a bad note, they just plow through that thing. I mean, how old is? You ever seen a young kid practice and it just sounds like, and they never stop. They're just fearless. That thing is almost like that will buff out, and it will get better if you keep digging at it. I think as an adult, we hear that bad note And we just shut down and stop and inspect that one note to death instead of just hitting it again and doing the time investment. But that's more of a neurological, psychological thing.
I think I'm sure I've heard Steve Lukather talk about ever since the invention of people being able to phone stuff, he doesn't even want to, he's paranoid now, even at his level, at sort of jamming a tune that maybe isn't super polished because he's worried that someone's going to record the bad note that he plays. And I think that's a really, I think
it's a double-edged sword, isn't it?
I do. The reality is it won't be that Steve Lukather won't be irrationally having that fear. It'll be because he's seen the negative comments on other people.
That's right.
So if you remove the negative comments and you replace them with positive, supportive comments, people would be less afraid to make a mistake, and then people would just practice,
God, how many live records probably wouldn't make it out if they were released on YouTube? You think about like Allman Brothers Live at the Fillmore. It's like, is that thing perfect top to bottom? Like perfectly in tune top to bottom? Of course not. But it's one of the most inspirational guitar records maybe ever, And you go, this perfection. And also, it's the nature of humanity. There's a lot of jealousy when somebody writes a negative comment. This is how shallow. You guys want to hear how petty I am? And I see a negative comment, I immediately go, because I never go to someone else's page and leave any comments. I don't like that. But if you come to my page, it's like you've came into my house and my circle. And if you leave a little negative comment, I'm going to your YouTube channel and I'm going to listen to you play. And I will leave my opinion on your video. And so a lot of people react and they go, oh, I can't believe you're so fragile ego. I'm like, so this only works one way, right? You don't like it if I come to your page and say, hey, man, your timing sucks. You need to stay off of YouTube and sit with that metronome a little bit more. And the reality is I probably strike a nerve and that might sting. But what if that person goes and sits with the metronome? Then maybe I've been a little bit of tough love. I don't want to turn anybody off from the guitar ever. I want to inspire people, but you've got to be faced with some truth. I think that's part of learning versus practicing, kind of segue into that. You have to have discipline to be like, this isn't ready yet. And you have to have discipline to go, it's not a complete thing yet. I need to polish it a little more. And by that, I mean, how many people have just sat down to learn a lick or a song and they go, oh, that's good enough to play Friday night? We're all guilty of that. We've all got to the finish line sooner than we should have, right? Or maybe what if you're an advanced player and you go, yeah, I know all the Van Halen solos. I'm like, well, did you learn what the chords are that aren't the solos? And I don't mean the guitar chords. Like, if I played... Or if I played, those are not Eddie's guitar parts. So if you really want to dive deep into Edward Van Halen, you have to dive deeper than just the surface level of the guitar riffs.
That does sound a lot like tough love to me, so I apologize, everybody here. What we really wanted was the super fast, how do we get really good without putting the practice in advice. But no, so let's lean into that. What is the difference between learning and I forgot the other thing.
Practice and learning. Yeah, so to me, let's take a. I grew up on a lot of bluegrass, so let me kind of aim maybe this, something like that. Yeah. If I played some. All of those kind of things, it's like if I wanted to sit down and try to practice that, learning it and practicing it are the most different in where you're at in your time investment. People think that learning something is moving the metronome forward, where maybe they would say, okay, let's take an opening lick to that classic bluegrass lick. Let's say that's the lick you want to learn, right? Very classic Tony Rice lick. If we wanted to learn that, learning that is going, okay, this is based out of G. My notes are, maybe start with the frets. That's, 3, what is that, 3, 1, 3, 1, 3, 4, open, right? Then you go, well, what are those notes? It would be like G, F. And if you're like, well, I don't know those notes, well, can you tune the guitar? Is that an E? Okay, well, then that's an F. It's taking the time to invest in learning what that is. So E, F, so that would also be 1, flat 7, 5, 4, flat 3, 3, 1. So learning every angle of it. Practicing is the idea of like, I know all of that. I don't even have to think about what that is. Practicing is now moving that forward. This would not be practicing it. That's not practice to me. That's still in learning, acquisition mode. You're learning how it feels. Practice is like, you want to play it maybe here. Maybe that's the target goal. I think practice sounds more like this. And you buff it out. It's like you're buffing out because you need to feel. It's the age-old metronome thing where you move things up in 4 and 5 BPM, and then inevitably at 130 BPM you hit a wall and you can't move your hand any faster. That's because the mechanic of how the hand works is completely different. Let's use another example. I'll slide in here. I'll try to get to where everybody can see my hand. If we're going to play, one of my favorite old fiddle tunes is Blackberry Blossom. If I play it slow, there's a lot of swing. Now, I'm not going to change anything that you would read in a tablature or a transcription. Every down is going to be the same. Every up's going to be the same. Every fingering is going to be the same. So from a visual standpoint, it's going to be identical. But watch my hand. It's a completely different looking mechanic, isn't it? You have to drive at the speed limit that you want to target it at so you can feel what it feels like to move your hand that fast. Now your job is to clean it up. That's practice.
I don't think I'm not sure I've ever heard that broken down quite like that, because I think most of us would go, the way to learn that is to start with the metronome slow and just gradually build the metronome.
The irony, I want to interject right there because it's a great point. The irony is, why is there still so many people trying to play fast? And you said the words, most of us are doing it. It's like, I believe that's the way, which ties to the youth thing. Kids are not afraid for it to sound bad. So they'll play fast as hell, and then it'll just buff out, right? I was learning tunes that as a young player, that I wasn't rating on difficulty because I was too young to know what's difficult or not. It was just, all of it was a sloppy mess. When I played slow, it sounded like crap. When I played fast, it sounded like crap. And then it was all just worked on. And so that process of moving it slow, you hit an anatomical wall, because this feeling that you're using on the slow one is not the same feeling. Have you ever tried to, who in here could ride a bicycle? Anybody in here can ride a bicycle? Sure, yeah. Anybody in here ever tried to teach a kid how to ride a bicycle? It's real crazy, right? You're like, well, you just got to be going fast enough. It's because the body has to feel what it feels like to maintain that. It's like swimming. And I think all of these physical things from an anatomic, psychological standpoint are like playing fast. We just, as adults, we're afraid when we hit a wrong note and we're like, oh, I can't be there yet.
I think this audience is going to go home and make an absolutely awful noise this evening.
Good.
As they try to play lots of stuff way faster than they've ever played it before.
And stay in it.
But we're going to buff it out, right?
We're going to buff it out.
By tomorrow, I want you all back here. I want you to show me that you've buffed it all out. But
that's the discipline where, like, you got to be okay. This is going to sound bad for a while.
I'm fascinated. And I really wish someone had probably said that to me younger, because almost every problem that I have with playing isn't left hand. It's the right hand just can't go fast enough. And maybe I've just,
Well, check it out. I mean, if I were just to play, we talk about the right hand moving fast enough. I think if I played, I think everybody in the room could probably be within this, It might sound a little ragged, it might not, but if I start playing notes at this tempo, it sounds way faster than it is, right? It's more about the accuracy. That sounds faster than it actually is. So if you have a problem with your right hand, the first thing you want to do is try to get a pocket. Maybe you got a little more speed in the tank. Now the goal is to develop pocket. That groove is where it all comes from. And you can move that thing around in tempo. You can bring it down. You can do it fast. But the idea of like being out of time as you struggle through Glasgow Kiss by John Petrucci and you think magically you're going to wake up day and it's going to get better, that's garbage. I just truly believe that that's garbage. And I think the guys that overcome those hurdles have got two things going for them: fearlessness and discipline. And you have to be okay with it sounding bad. Me and my guitar tech, John Cooper, he's around here somewhere. We've always got the joke. He's become, over the past 4 years, we've been working together. He's been working on his guitar playing stuff. He's a different player now. And it's just like we got this joke where we go, it's going to get worse before it gets better. And once you make peace with that, and you make peace with the fact that you're not trying to win the guitar or win the song that you're playing, and you've put some artificial time frame on how long it takes to get there. This is all just mental perspective stuff. It's the kind of stuff I live by and how I like to teach, and I think that's what it's like. If we have one lesson ever, and this is the one you get, you could take this and apply it to the rest of your life. You know what I mean?
My mind is slightly blown, but I'm absolutely going to give that a go. Apologies to everybody that watches me on YouTube if I try doing that in videos. It will sound awful, but I'll buff it out, right? Yeah. We're going to buff it out. Anyway, look, I'm a little bit conscious of the time. I think we're down to the last 5 minutes or so. Did you want to talk about... I can't believe your Shure guitar is having its 10th birthday.
Yeah, it's the 10-year anniversary of the actual prototype. And out of the entire Shure line, I was the only, and I think I'm still the only artist that designed a body style. Mm-hmm. From 30 feet, it looks like a working man's Telecaster. But on the back of it, it's got the asymmetrical heel. It was basically, I was seeing pictures of myself playing the Moderns on tour, and they looked way cooler than I look. You know what I mean? Because I wear black jeans and a shirt or whatever. But like I was like, I want a guitar that plays like that, but has a vintage tone and a vintage vibe and has a lot of spread on versatility. Yeah. And I kept going to John. This was 2014. I was on the tour with Scott Stapp, and we were doing a lot of metal stuff, playing all Tremonti parts and stuff like that. And I kept going to John. I was like, man, can you do this? Can you do this? No, nobody wants that. Nobody's into that, And he finally goes, if I make one for you, will you just leave me alone? And I said, yes. And so he made the black. You guys see me play the black one with the silver guard, and that guitar was built and delivered in 2014, and it turned 10 years old last year, and now we're releasing the 10-year anniversary models, and it's been wildly successful. So it's one of those things where I go to John, I was like, hey, man.
Yeah, I was right. Yeah.
But it's a thing where it's like you got to make a choice as an artist to work with manufacturers that are willing to help you fix your thing.
Yep.
And it's not about sales. Everything's from a pragmatic standpoint. If that's fixed, hopefully I can make better albums and better music, and then we'll sell more guitars, right? By just solutions. In a lot of ways, I encourage everyone to check it out, especially if you hate tellies, because it's the telly for people that hate tellies.
Who hates tellies?
I don't like those people. Just heads up. If you hate tellies, you're not my guy. You know what I mean? But no, seriously, if you find that tellies have those heel joints or those non-ergonomic things, and this is just kind of, again, it was like that pragmatic solution to a lot of those core issues.
It's my badge of honor guitar, the Telecaster. If you can be good on a Telecaster, basically you're the best guitar player in the world.
A Telecaster through a twin is the purveyor of truth.
Yes.
You really learn how good or not good you are when you do that.
Anyway, look, lastly, plug your jam tonight.
Yeah, tonight in the big main stage, we're going to have Andy Timmons. We're going to have Chris Buck from Cardinal Black. We're going to have Frank Bello from Anthrax, Billy Sheehan. We're going to have just a crew of players. We're going to start the show with 5 of my tunes off the new record, and then we're going to get into some jams, and it's going to be very self-indulgent.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, have you enjoyed hearing Andy speak for the last half an hour or so? Give him a round of applause.
Thanks so much. I have I have a gift of sorts. A gift
Okay.
of sorts. I talked to my business partner who does the Woodshed Guitar Experience, and he agreed to let me do a little something special for you guys. We understand that Europe is a long travel, and it increases your travel costs to come to the States. So we're going to give anyone here at Summit a $500 discount to Woodshed. We only have 100 spots available, and it's on sale now. This is only going to run through October, but if you use code SUMMIT500, SUMMIT500, it's going to give you a $500 discount, and we're not going to run this code domestically or anything. It's just for you guys. Hopefully that can help with the flight over if you'd like to attend it, because I do get a lot of messages and emails like, man, I'd love to come, but I can't do the flight and the event, So, that's a special shout out to my partner, John, and allowing me to have a little more leash, because I'd give it away if I could, but he wouldn't let me.
All right, man. Well, look, it's a
Thanks,
pleasure
brother.
to see you again. Take care. Thank you, guys, for staying, and we shall see you again in about 10 minutes.